What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Chris, this is 4K Motoring, and today we're going to be working on a 2014 Mazda 3 Touring. Now, one of my good friends has this car. It's got about 150,000 miles on it. It's been a pretty good car in the last 10 years or so that it's been around. What he's noticed is that the front wheel is starting to shake a little bit when he applies the brakes, which indicates to us that there's some run out or some issue with the warping on the front rotors. So we're going to take care of that. And while we have it, we're going to look through it, just kind of see the state of health of the car in general and see where we're at as far as maintenance and the overall lifespan of this car. As you guys have probably noticed, we've already gone and jacked up the car. It is sitting on jack stands, so all four wheels are off the ground, so we're on a good place to go ahead and begin doing the brake job. What you're going to need is a 21mm socket. This is a carbon fiber set I got, so it doesn't scratch your wheel. They look pretty cool as well. We're going to go ahead and take these wheels off. We're going to look at the brakes and see overall condition where we're at. Okay, now that I have all the tires removed, I'm going to go ahead and check out the brakes. Normally I set the tires aside just so I can make sure I rotate them so they have the longer service life. Because this car has tires that are as worn as they are, I'm not really going to be worried about rotating them for service life. I'm just going to make sure I have the tires with the most tread in the rear of the car just for stability in wet weather. And the rest will just happen. I've told the owner that he needs tires soon. Hopefully he gets that taken care of. We're going to go ahead and look at the brakes and kind of see what we're dealing with. So overall, we can see the brakes and the shocks have been done before. There's nice little zip ties holding everything together because they broke these clips on the ABS sensor. When we look at the meat we have on our brake pads, right in there, you can pretty easily see that these aren't that old. There's not a lot of run out on the pad. I can see some grooving, but there's really no lip or no edge. These haven't been abrased into deeply. The inside's a little bit worse than the outside, but they're not that bad. If we look at the rears definitely look like they have plenty of pad left, so I don't think we really need to change them. They don't look like they're in that bad a shape. Since he did complain about the vibration upon braking in the front and through the steering wheel, we know there's some issue with the rotors, be it run out, be it warping, whatever you want to call it. There's some issue with the rotors. So since we have this Powerstop Z23 kit, I'll leave a link to that below. We're going to go ahead and swap that in. One, it'll look better. Two, it'll be at least fresh brakes for this car, so that way we're not having that steering wheel shake issue. We could probably get by with just doing rotors, even just resurfacing rotors, but personally I know there's a lot to do with heat damaging of the actual rotors themselves, especially stop and go driving that create the warping and are more likely to have warping again. A lot of people say it's more the adhesion of pad material being added to the rotor itself to make the thickness vary from heavy braking, from holding your foot on the brake when you stop in traffic. So regardless what it is that's causing this particular issue, I don't want to run the risk of having some heat damage in the rotor and this just reoccur very quickly. I want to put some new rotors on it and deal with that problem once and for all. And since we're doing new rotors, we will throw new pads on it as well. That way we're getting the full service life out of the front brakes, and we're going to bed those new pads to that rotor. That way there's no adhesion issues at all with these brakes. So I'll show you guys in a little bit more detail here exactly how to do this, but the front brakes are pretty typical. What you have is your caliper. There's two bolts on the caliper, top and bottom. They're gonna have to come out to do the pad change. Those are 13mm. And right back here for a caliper bracket, these are 17mm. One on the top and one on the bottom right here. And that's gonna take this bracket off. That allows you to take this rotor off to change it out. What I found out was that the old pads were a little bit more than 50% remaining on them, so they're definitely worn. They've definitely been on there for a little while, but it's definitely best to change them out. I always have a problem with the new hardware included in the Powerstop kits. It is always very tight, and these particularly have a lot of extra bends in them and extra material that the ones that were already on there did not. And I couldn't get these pads to go in with those new hardware. So I ended up just cleaning off the hardware, making sure that there's no damage on it, no cracks, re-lubing it, and reusing that same hardware. We did go ahead and pull out our bolts here, our slide pins. And these are very important because the way these particular calipers work is that there's only a piston on the one side, on the inside of these, that presses out. So this whole caliper has to slide Unlike something like these Brembos that have pistons on both sides of the rotor, that way it squeezes both sides of the caliper at the same time and provides optimal braking force. The only way these cheaper models used on cars work is that the whole caliper slides, so you have to make sure that the slide pin has good lubrication on it. Be careful when there's a lot of grease on these things. Don't get any of that grease on the actual pad surface or the rotor surface. Your rotors usually come with some sort of coating on them to keep them from oxidizing and rusting. These are zinc plated. There's still usually some sort of coating on them. Make sure you use a little bit of brake cleaner to get that off. While we get to the other side, we're going to go ahead and do our oil change. There's a nice set of aerodynamic paneling under this car that if it's still in good condition, still has all its pieces, you're going to need basically a flathead screwdriver and a Phillips screwdriver to get this panel off. From the front of the car, I'm going to try and show you best I can on camera. Down underneath on the passenger side of the car, we've got a couple service panels. There's one up front here, we're not going to worry about that one. But the one outboard towards our passenger side wheel, there's a panel right under here. You've got a Phillips screwdriver that also looks like maybe an 8mm on the two sides of it. And then you've got some of these push pins that just require a little flathead screwdriver to come out. This service panel will come out and our drain plug is right behind there. So with this service panel removed, from a lot of room, we can see our drain plug and oil filter are right inside. So we're going to go ahead and start letting this oil drain out of here. It's going to be just under 5 quarts. Goes in this car. It's about 4.6 quarts with a filter. So we'll let that drain out while we're doing the other rotor. Go ahead and put it all back together. The oil we're using in this car is Mobil 1 full synthetic. It's a high mileage because this car has 150,000 miles on it. 0W20 is what's called for. And we're going to use a K&N filter. I know there's mixed feelings on them. I particularly like them just because they have that welded nut on top. It always makes it easy to install and remove. This is going to be the HP 1008 from K&N, which will complement our 0W20. Again, this is 5 quarts. We're only going to need about 4.6 quarts, so we'll have a little bit left over. Let's go ahead and put that filter back on, fill it up, and that should be our oil change. Overall, there's nothing truly complicated about this job. We were able to go through this car, about 10 years old with about 150,000 miles on it. Tires need to change. They're all pretty low, about 3/32 of tread left. Let the owner know those things. Battery was looking good. There was no codes on the computer. The oil change, although access was a little bit interesting getting to that panel underneath that yours may or may not have, it was all pretty straightforward. The brakes required no special tools. It was just a very standard brake replacement. All in all, this job can be done in about an hour with only basic hand tools. I know it's not normally a vehicle you see on this channel, but if you like videos like this, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more. I know we've had a little bit of break with the videos. There'll be definitely more coming back later on this summer. Stay tuned, and we'll be back.